Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the next lecture of the Web Engineering Lab. I'm your instructor, Engineer Miabad, and in today's lecture I'll be covering the topic of JavaScript. You people already know that we have already covered the HTML, CSS and a little bit of JavaScript in the Bootstrap section of our lab. But we used the classes of Bootstrap in the previous labs. So in today's lecture, I'll be covering the syntax and semantics of JavaScript programming. So basically, JavaScript is a high-level object-oriented programming language, and it is one of the core technologies of web development alongside with HTML and CSS. JavaScript enables interactive web pages and it is an essential part of web application. Almost all the major web browsers like we have Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Edge, etc. We all of those web browsers have JavaScript engines already installed in it to execute the JavaScript programs. Okay, so basically there are three core technologies of web development: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is basically, you can say it's the skeleton or it's the structure of a website. Whatever you see in the website, the structure of it, it is done using the HTML. Then comes the CSS. CSS, you people already know that it's used for styling. You use CSS to make the website appealing. And then comes JavaScript. JavaScript is basically it makes a website interactive. Like for example, if you want to hide a picture, or if you want to show a picture or a paragraph, or if you want to scroll make scrolling effects in your website and many other things, you use JavaScript for that. All right, so let's start with the basic JavaScript programming. I must say, I must say in the start that I will not be focusing on how the programming works, because you people are already in the final year. So I would expect that all of you should be having the background of programming. You people know how does variables work, how does if-else statements works, how does loops work. So I'll just be focusing on the syntax, because the thing different in JavaScript than other languages is only the script. Okay, so first of all, I would use I would open the visual code, and I'll open this starter folder in it. I've already provided it with this video, so you may use that. So let's open the file, new folder, open folder, desktop, starter, select folder. Okay, so open the index.html starter file. So you can see that, okay, we can import JavaScript in we can import the JavaScript. Okay, sorry, this is HTML. Sorry. Using two types: the inline and importing the JavaScript file from some other file. So let's first work on the inline. I would say that simply console dot log. As usual, we would just wave the world hello. So hello world. Would save it. Let's run this using the live server. Sorry, it's taking a while because my Windows just updated. So okay, So how would you see the output of this script? Just right click, go to inspect elements, and in the inspect element you should go to console. Okay, it says hello world. Okay, now what will I do? I will use the import option of the JavaScript. I would simply come here and I would write JavaScript source, that is script.js, that is this one file. Okay, so I will use this file. Okay, I've already worked on it. Let's do one thing. Let's just remove everything from it and just save it. Okay, now let's write console.log hello world. Save it, and oh sorry, I have the hello world over there. So what have I used? I have used the HTML file, the starter file, and I have imported the source JavaScript file in this HTML file, and I've run it using my browser. Anyways, okay, let's before beginning I must say that the JavaScript, about the JavaScript, it is said that everything in the JavaScript is an object. So whether that's a variable, that's a function, that's an object itself, everything is considered as an object. Okay, that was just a side note. So let's begin. Let's say I make a variable, let's say first name, and let's make it Ali. Then I would make a second variable, that is variable last name, and let's make it like Khan. Maybe we can make a new variable of let's say job. What does Mr. Ali Khan do? So I would write like maybe he's a designer. Okay, then what's his age? So his age would be let's say he's 24 years old. Okay, now let's save it. I don't have anything over here. How to output it? I would just simply say console.log. Let's say I just want to output his first name. I would simply write first name and simply save it. So his first name is Ali. Let's make a proper output. So I would write that Mr. Ali is Mr. Ali last name plus, just change the view, is this much years old, and he is this by profession. So this is how you use how you output the variables along with the strings. So let's save it. So it says that Ali Khan is 24 years old and he is a designer by profession. Alright. Now let's say just comment it. Now I would write an alert, and it would say, okay, leave that for a while. I would make a prompt. Let's say it asks me my name, your name, and it says it's a prompt, and it says, let's say, what's your name? Right? Then I will just print it. Hello, and I'll use this variable, your name, along it. Save it. Okay, what's the problem? Oh, sorry, I've forgotten the closing. Okay, so I have used the prompt function. What is the prompt function? This is my prompt function. Whatever you write in there, it will just be prompted, and it will get get an input from the user. So I would say, let's say it says what is your name. I would say, sorry, I would say Eval. When I click OK, it will say hello Eval. It will just display it. Okay, so this is how you prompt something in JavaScript. Okay, now let's say a small program. Let's say I want to calculate the BMI of someone. So what would I do? For BMI, I need the height and weight of a person. I would say variable, let's say Ali, again Mr. Ali underscore weight is equal to, let's say, 60. Let's say Ali underscore height is equal to let's say he is 3 meters, and so let's calculate his BMI. I would simply say variable Ali underscore BMI is equal to Ali underscore weight divided by, this is just a formula of the BMI, divided by Ali underscore height multiplied by Ali underscore height. Okay, so now let's console it, console.log, and I would say that the BMI of Ali is, what would I write? Ali underscore BMI. So now let's run it. So it says that the BMI of Ali is 6.6667. So alright, so that was just a really small program, a practice program. Right. Okay, so now let's talk about if-else statements. So let's say I have a variable of, let's say, a name, and it is, let's say, anyone, again Mr. Ali, and let's say yeah, let's know his civil status. he's single. Okay, so if I write if the civil status is equal to merit, you must note that here in JavaScript we use three equal to signs for checking if it is equal to or not. So if civil status is equal to merit, we should console log, we would say that name plus is merit. Okay, else I would say that console log I would write name will marry soon. Of course, if he likes, so he will marry soon. So now let's run this. So it says that Ali will marry soon, again if he likes. But if it is, let's say, married, so it would say that Ali is married. Okay, this was a very simple if-else statement. Let's say I do the same thing using our okay, let's do the same thing using our ternary operators. So I would write just variable married or single is equal to, so if civil status is equal to merit, I would console log and say that name is merit. Okay, and if the civil status is not equal to merit, it would say console, and just copy paste the same. You say that Ali will marry soon. So it's known as a ternary operator. Let's say civil status, if this is equal to merit, it would console out name is Ali's married, or the alternate would be, if it is single, so it would say he will marry soon. Okay, just remove this from it, don't need it at the moment. So it says Ali is married. If we make it single, it will say Ali will marry soon. So it's the same thing as in this one if else statement, but it is done using the ternary operator. Okay, now let's move towards switch statements. You have already used it in C, C++, the switch and case statements. So let's say I make a switch statement of jobs. I would write variable job is equal to, let's say, an instructor. Okay, now I would switch between the jobs. Switch of the option job, and if the case is teacher, let's say, so it would say or even make an instructor, let's say instructor. So it would console out console.log, let's say name, teaches students, I don't know what has happened to my typing, but okay. So this is the first case. Then I would write a break statement, because if it is true, the loop will the switch statement will end. It would not go to the second case. Okay, let's say if the job is let's say is a driver, so I would write console.log and name let's say drives Uber, maybe. Okay, and break. Same is the case if he is, let's say if he is a designer, write console.log designs websites. Let's say he's a website designer. Break, and a default case, if no case is true, it would just console out, let's say I write name does something else, whatever it is. Okay, so the name does something else. So so this is how you write the switch case statements. What have I done? I've made a variable of job of instructor. Then I made decisions using the job variable using switch. So the first case is instructor. If then this name is an instructor, it would console it would display that, let's say, Ali teach students. So then we will write a break statement just to not to go to the second case. If he's a driver and if he's a designer, it would display as such. Let's save it. It says that Ali teaches students. Let's say I write here driver, so Ali drives Uber. Let's say I write something else, let's say ABC. It would say Ali does something else, because it didn't found any case relevant to the job, so the default display would be there. Okay, so this was about the switch statement. Now the next topic is functions. I have a list, and it says the next topic is function, but I have okay. So now just comment it out. Let's start with functions. In JavaScript, you write functions as you write function. Let's say you calculate someone's age. So you would write calculate age, and I would pass the birth year. So it would just return this is 2020, a very hard year, I must say, minus birth year. So it would return this. Let's call this function now. So variable, let's say age of Ali, it would be calculate age, and I would pass, let's say he was born in 1990. I would write another one, and that would be age of, let's say Ahmed, and let's say he was born in 1980. So I would now console out it, and it would say the age of Ali and the age of Ahmed. Okay, so now let's run it. So the age of Ali is 30 and the age of Ahmed is 40. So this is how you make functions. It's a very simple function. Let's go a little advanced in this. Okay, so now let's make a function, let's say okay, in which we calculate the years until someone's retirement. We would give the function the name of the person and the year in which he was born. So it would what would it do? It would return the years until retirement, but for that I would be needing this function, right? Okay, because I have to first calculate the age, and then I have to calculate the years to retirement. I would write function years until retirement. I would pass the year and let's say the name of the person. Okay, first of all, what would I do in the function? I will make a variable of age, and age will be calculated from the previous function that we have just made. So I will pass the year to him, to the previous function. Now let's say I make another one. So variable of retirement, it will be, let's say here in Pakistan it is 60, so I would be writing 60 minus age. Now write if retirement is greater than let's say 0, I would write console.log Mr. or Miss name has all retires in retirement years, right? Else I would write just console.log name has already. It's already retired. Okay, now let's send this function some data. So here's until retirement. I would input, let's say, someone is born in 1990. I would write Ali was born in 1990. Someone else was born in, let's say, 1948. And his name was, let's say, Akbar. Very old name. Okay. So let's run this. So it says that Ali retires in 30 years and Akbar is already retired, because the in the first case the retirement variable has a value greater than 0, so it would display this line, and in the second case, in the Akbar case, it was less than 0 because his age is more than 60, so it would be in minus, so it would display this line. Okay. Okay, so now let's move towards arrays. How do we define arrays? Okay, so arrays. There are two ways to define arrays. I hope I haven't covered it yet. Okay, yes, I haven't covered it. Okay. There are two ways to define arrays in JavaScript. Number one is, let's say I write variable, again the same, Ali. His name is, let's say, Ali. His last name is Khan. His date of birth is 1990. Let's say he's a designer. Okay, so this is the first way to define an array. Another way to define an array is using, let's say, let's say age of some people. I would say new array, and I would add ages in this. So these are the two ways how you define arrays, number one and number two. Okay, now let's play around with this array. What I can do in this array is I can push other values in it. I can pop values from it. Let's say I would like to add Mr. to this name Ali Khan. So I would just simply write Ali dot push Mr. Okay. Before that, let's just first console out those previous arrays. So console dot log Ali. Right. So it's Ali Khan 1990 and designer. If I console out age, it will say 1990, 80, and 50. Okay. So now if I push Mr. in the Ali array, how would it be? Console log Ali. Let's run it. So I have pushed Mr. in the array Ali. Okay. Now let's say the problem is that the name Mr. is at the end. I want to shift it to the start. What would I write? I would just simply add Ali dot unshift. Using unshift, I can shift it to the beginning, the start. So it would be Mr. dot. So now you can say that Mr. Ali Khan. Okay, so I have used it, the unshift method. Now I want to pop out something from this same array. So Ali dot pop. Now let's check it out. So by using pop method, you can pop the last value of the element of the array. So the Mr. that was at the end, I just popped it out. Okay. Let's say okay. There's a function in arrays of JavaScript that says console dot log Ali dot index of. Let's say I write here anything. Let's say I write here 20. What does it mean? If I call this function index of and I pass it with some value, let's say 20 in this case, what will this function do? It will search the entire Ali array and it would search for the for this element, that is 20, and if it does not find anything, it would return -1, and if it finds the 20 in this array, it would return the index of the of this element that we have passed. So since we do not have 20 in our array, so let's run it. So it has returned -1. Now let's say I pass Khan to it, let's say, and I just save it. So it has given me 20 because the first value was Mr. because we have added it afterwards. Mr. Ali Khan, so 0, 1, 2. All right. Now let's use a ternary operator here. So let's say I want to check that whether Mr. Ali is a designer or not. So I would simply write let's say variable is designer is equal to Ali dot index of designer. If it is equal to -1, right, the answer is equal to -1, so just write Ali is not a designer because it did not find designer in the array of Ali. Is not a designer. Else the alternate would be Ali is a designer, right? I will just simply console.log is designer. Let's save it. So it says Ali is a designer because it has this designer in it. If let's say I write here driver, so it says Ali is not designer because it did not find driver in the array. So this was about the arrays. Let's close it. Now let's move towards objects. How do you make objects in the JavaScript? So it's also really simple at this level. So let's say I have a person named, let's go to John. I have a person named John, and sorry, this is how you make objects. Let's say his first name is John, a comma. Let's say his last name is John Smith, maybe. Yeah, last name is Smith, and his birth year is let's say 1995, and you can add arrays in an object. So I would write the name of his family members. So since, okay, sorry, I've just made a mistake. We do not use equal to sign here. We use colon, 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 colon. So let's say people in his family are, since he's Jane, so it would be John, so it would be Jane. It would be, let's say, Mr. Mark, Bob, very common name. Okay, so these are people in his family. What is his job? Let's say he's a data scientist, right? Okay, so let's save it. Hope there's no error. Yeah. Now just simply write console.log. So John dot let's say I want to see his last name and his date of birth, his birth year. John dot birth year. Let's see. So his last name is Smith and his birth year is 1995, right? If I want to see his family, I would just simply write John dot family. Save. So Jane, Mark, and Bob are his family members. So this is how you use objects in JavaScript. Okay. The same thing as we just did here, you can use the same thing but using another method, that is, let's say, variable John equals to new object, right? This is the second method of doing the same thing. So I would write John dot, let's say, first name equals to John for obvious reasons, and John dot last name equals to Smith. See, in this method I'm using the equal to sign. In the previous method you had to use a colon. Okay. Let's say his birth year, so John dot birth year would be, let's say, 1995. Okay, so save it. It's all right. Now just console.log. Let's say John dot birth year. So the same answer, that is 1995. Okay, so now just come towards the loops. I hope that is the last topic for today. So let's say I talk about the for loop. So for variable I, it should be very easy for you. Variable I is less than 10, I plus plus, console dot log I. So 0, 1, 2, 3 till 9. So this is how you use for loop. Then you can use while loop and other loops. Okay, so I hope this was enough for the basics of the JavaScript language. I would upload a lab assessment of this lab it would have like two to three, yeah, 2 to 3 coding assignments. A very easy one, because this should be a piece of cake for you. So I would upload that, and please submit the assignment in the due date. As far as the midterm examination is concerned, as you people know that um, the date has been extended, so I will reschedule the presentation and I would just reschedule the presentation. The task that I have given you, the due date of the task that I have given you would remain the same. Just the presentation would be a little bit late. Okay, so thank you so much. If there is any question, you can ask me using my email, or if there is any problem in this recording and understanding of this recording, I may take an online class. Just inform your CRD, let me know. Thank you so much. Take care.